Hey, Pinheads, welcome back to Psychopinion. One of my favorite things about horror collecting isn't just owning figures, posters, or masks. It's learning the incredible stories behind them. Because once you discover where these legendary killers actually come from, you'll never look at them the same way again. What's really fascinating is that most of horror's greatest villains weren't dreamed up overnight. Real crimes, childhood memories, news headlines, strange encounters, moments that genuinely terrified their creators. So today, we're diving into the surprisingly real origins behind some of horror's biggest legends. Let's see where the nightmares are actually born. Freddy Krueger was inspired by a real nightmare. Let's start with one of horror's greatest icons, Freddy Krueger. When most people think about Freddy, they picture the striped sweater, the glove, the burned face. Of course, but the truly terrifying part, the idea behind Freddy, actually came from a real tragedy. Director Wes Craven read several newspaper articles in the Los Angeles Times about refugee families who had escaped Cambodia after the Khmer Rouge regime. One young boy became absolutely terrified of falling asleep. He told his parents something evil was chasing him every time he dreamed. He stayed awake for days, doing everything he could to avoid sleep. Eventually, his exhausted body gave in. His parents believed everything would finally be okay until they heard him screaming. By the time they reached him, he had tragically passed away in his sleep. Doctors couldn't fully explain what had happened. The haunting story stuck with Wes Craven for years and eventually became the foundation for one of the greatest horror movies ever made. Now that is fascinating. The monster wasn't the scary part. The fear of sleep itself was. That's such a brilliant horror concept because every single one of us has had to sleep eventually. You can't outrun it, you can't hide from it. Eventually, you close your eyes. That's genius. Michael Myers was inspired by one terrifying stare. Michael Myers hardly says a word. He barely runs. He doesn't crack jokes. He simply keeps coming. John Carpenter once explained that while visiting a psychiatric hospital during college, he encountered a young patient whose expression completely unsettled him. The boy simply stared. No emotion, no anger, no sadness, nothing. Carpenter later described it as looking into pure emptiness. That blank stare eventually became the soul, or maybe the lack of one, behind Michael Myers. Even Michael's slow movement had inspiration. Carpenter modeled some of his relentless walking after Yul Brynner's unstoppable android gunslinger from the 1973 sci-fi movie Westworld. Sometimes the slowest monster is the scariest monster. That's probably why Michael has aged so well. He isn't scary because he's loud. He's scary because he feels inevitable. Like death itself, no matter how fast you run, he somehow catches up. Jason almost never had a hockey mask. It's almost impossible to imagine Jason without that hockey mask. But here's the funny part. He didn't wear it until Friday the 13th, Part 3. Before that, Jason wore a sack over his head. The hockey mask wasn't some grand master plan. Crew simply needed something new. Special effects artist Marty Sadoff happened to be a huge Detroit Red Wings fan and suggested using a goalie mask. Everyone loved it. Movie history was made. One random sports item became one of the most recognizable horror images ever created. Even Jason's name has an interesting story. Writer Victor Miller combined the names of his own sons, Ian and Josh, and the surname of a girl he remembered from school. Sometimes horror history starts around the family dinner table. Can you imagine if they had chosen literally anything else? Now moving on to one of my favorites, Leatherface. Unlike many horror villains, Leatherface wasn't inspired by imagination alone. He was heavily influenced by real-life murderer Ed Gein. Gein horrified investigators after authorities discovered he had been making household items from human remains. His crimes inspired not only Leatherface, but also Norman Bates from Psycho and Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. Three completely different horror icons, all tracing back to the same disturbing true crime case. The chainsaw itself, that came from a much less horrifying place. Toby Hooper once joked that while stuck in a packed holiday shopping crowd, he imagined using a chainsaw just to clear a path through the people. Thankfully, it stayed just an idea. I don't know about you, but holiday shopping can definitely feel like a horror movie. Maybe not chainsaw territory, but close. Ghostface came from the evening news. Unlike Freddy, Jason, or Michael, Ghostface isn't supernatural. That's part of what makes Scream so effective. Writer Kevin Williamson was inspired after watching news coverage about the Gainesville Ripper murders. The idea of someone ordinary, calling victims, playing games, and attacking suburban neighborhoods felt terrifying because it seemed possible. Williamson combined that real-world fear with classic slasher movies. and created a villain who could literally be anyone. Every new Scream movie reminds us of that. Behind the mask, it's always someone different. That's what keeps Ghostface fresh after all these years. You never wonder who's behind that mask. You wonder, who can I trust? That's a very different kind of. Here's a few more creepy inspirations you might not know. Candyman's hook, the famous hook wasn't chosen randomly. It was inspired by old urban legends and folklore about mysterious figures lurking just outside your field of vision. Pennywise, Stephen King had said he wanted to create the ultimate monster. So he asked himself, what scares children more than anything? His answer, clowns. Now Chucky, the Child's Play movies, were partly inspired by the real-life Robert the Doll legend and the old belief that objects could become possessed. Sometimes the creepiest toy is the one sitting quietly on the shelf. I always thought that my buddy had something to do with it too.
My buddy, my buddy, my buddy, my buddy, my buddy and me.
My Buddy from Play School.
My childhood, we had these dolls, My Buddy. I don't know if anybody remembers those or not. Might be before a lot of you viewers' time, like, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s, there was My Buddy. I didn't know if Chucky or My Buddy came first. That'd be interesting to, maybe I'll just add that right here.
That's sus.
Guess I was wrong. Robert the Doll. Things that accidentally created horror legends. Reading the newspaper, going to college, watching hockey, holiday shopping, childhood bullies, one incredibly creepy stare. Turns out, nightmares have pretty ordinary beginnings. So my question to you, which horror villain has the most interesting real-life inspiration? Do you think true crime makes horror movies scarier? Which killer feels the most believable? Please comment below. One of the coolest things about horror history is realizing these legendary monsters didn't just appear out of thin air. They grew from real fears, real people, real tragedies. In ordinary moments, real tragedies. In ordinary moments that creative filmmakers transformed into unforgettable nightmares. As a horror collector, I love displaying these characters on the shelf, but I enjoy knowing the stories behind them even more, because once you know where they came from, they somehow become even more fascinating. If you've got a favorite horror origin story, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with your fellow horror fans. As always, thanks for hanging out with us here on Psychopinion, where real horror, real history, real opinions come together every week. We'll catch you next time, pinheads. See you soon.